A few weeks ago, when we learned Parshas Emor, we discussed the verses that pertain to Shavuot. I'd like to return to them again. The Torah tells us that on the second day of Pesach, there was a carbon brought called the carbon ha'omer. This was a measure of the new barley. And the carbon ha'omer permits the new grain for consumption. Until the carbon ha'omer is brought, so you cannot eat chadash, you cannot eat the new grain. The carbon ha'omer permits it. Interestingly, it is only permitted for human consumption. But the chadash still cannot be brought as a carbon in the Beis Hamikdash. All the flour offerings brought, even after the carbon ha'omer, still are from last year's flour. And this continues for a period of 7 weeks. The Torah says you begin counting from the day of the carbon ha'omer for 7 complete weeks, and then on the 50th day you bring a carbon of the new wheat, and this is called the shtei halecha, the 2 loaves. And this is different than the carbon ha'omer. The carbon ha'omer was barley, and it was matzah, was unleavened. And here, the shtei halachim is wheat and it's leavened. And this offering, the shtei halachim, permits chadash, the new grain, to be brought in the Beis Hamikdash as a carbon. So there are 2 matirim, 2 karbonos which permit the chadash. The carbon ha'omer permits the chadash, the new grain, for human consumption, and the shtei halachim on Shavuos permits the chadash for temple purposes. And the counting in the Torah is expressed this way, that we are counting to connect the carbon ha'omer to the carbon of the shtei halachim. Now this has taken on a new meaning for us, that the purpose of the counting is to connect the Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, which took place on Pesach, and the giving of the Torah, which took place on Shavuos. That's what we tend to think. But in the Torah, that connection is not apparent at all. The Torah never explicitly relates the counting as the connection between the Exodus from Egypt and the giving of the Torah. In the Torah, the counting is the connection between these 2 sacrifices, the carbon of the Omer on the second day of Pesach, and the carbon of the shtei halachim on Shavuos. And at first glance, it's hard to understand exactly what the idea here is. Okay, let's turn away from this for a moment and discuss a very interesting idea that relates to Shavuos. There's a medrash, it's a Gemara really, which points out that there's a psalm we say every Shabbos, Hodul Hashem kitov kili olam chazdo. We praise Hashem for His kindness. His kindness is forever. And that psalm has 26 verses. Kili olam chazdo, kili olam chazdo, kili olam chazdo, 26 times. So God's kindness is forever, is repeated 26 times. So what is the significance of the 26? Of course, you know that 26 is the numerical value of the divine name, which implies midas harachamim, God's mercy. But the Gemara gives a different explanation. The Gemara says this corresponds to the 26 generations before the Torah was given. If you count up the generations of man from Adam Harishon until Moshe Rabbeinu, there are 26 generations. Torah was given to the 27th generation. But the world was created and was sustained for 26 generations by God's kindness, because we had no way of earning our keep. Until the Torah was given, we could not earn our room and board, so to speak. When the Torah was given, so now we no longer are sustained by God's kindness. We earn our livelihood. We deserve it. We do mitzvahs with our Torah, and we deserve that which God gives us. That's what the Gemara says. So for 26 generations, God sustained the world in His kindness. That's Kil Yolam Chazdo 26 times. And then the Torah was given, and now no need for God's kindness, it seems, because we can earn our own keep. That's what the Gemara says. Rav Hutner Zechat Tzadik Lebracha often quoted this medrash, this Gemara, and he said that it's easy to make a mistake, to think that God's kindness lasted 26 generations and then it was exhausted. God ran out of kindness, and now God says, from now on, you got to earn your keep. It's not that way. The truth is that the giving of the Torah was an intensification of God's kindness. Now, there are two types of kindnesses. One type of kindness is just a handout. I give you something, you did nothing to deserve it. It's a handout. It's welfare, charity. That's one kind of kindness. Another kind of kindness is if I give you the means with which you can be self-sufficient. That's a greater kindness. But instead of giving you a fish, I teach you how to fish, so now you can be self-sufficient, self-employed. And the difference between before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah is that before Matan Torah, there was no way we could earn our living. There was nothing we could do. We could not do mitzvahs. We could not learn Torah. We could not be deserving of God's bounty. So God sustained us in the manner of welfare. It was a handout. For 26 generations. When the Torah was given, there was an intensification of God's kindness. God gave us the ability to earn our keep, that we should be the recipients of God's kindness without any embarrassment, without any shame. Because we can say we truly earned it. So it was an intensification of God's kindness that came with the giving of the Torah. With the giving of the Torah, God gave us the means to be independent, self-sufficient, to earn the bounty that God showers upon us. That's what the great Gaon Rav Hutner explained in this medrash. Now you might ask a question, that there were mitzvahs given before. There were Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Nayach. There were 7 mitzvahs that were given to all mankind at the very outset. So there were mitzvahs, even before the Torah was given, for which man could be rewarded. Why does this matter seem to say that it only was with the giving of the Torah? See, we have to understand something very, very important about the mitzvahs of the Torah. This is a concept which is a mystical concept. It's a mystical concept which goes counter to everything we always tend to think. There's an idea which is emphasized by the Rambam and the Ramban and the Sefer HaChinuch, based on a statement in the Talmud, that the mitzvahs that were given, mitzvahs of the Torah given to the Jewish people, were not to satisfy God's needs. God is totally self-sufficient. He doesn't need our service, doesn't need our prayers, doesn't need our devotion, doesn't need our service. Now, the mitzvahs were given for our benefit. Now, there's a medrash which says, Lo nitna Torah elo litzaref es abrios. Torah was given to refine mankind. Torah is for us, it's for our benefit. Because God has nothing from the mitzvahs that we do. He has no benefit, he has no accrued wealth. Nothing comes to God because we do mitzvahs. The mitzvahs were given to us for our sake. The Mukubalim, the mystics, want to modify this idea and introduce that in some sense the mitzvahs are a tzorech govaya. They do satisfy a divine need. Now, what this means is difficult to understand. I don't think we should take it to mean a need in the sense that God is deficient, but in the need in the sense that there is something that God wants from the created universe which gives him tremendous satisfaction. It's not that God is dispassionate. There is something that he wants to happen in this world which gives him satisfaction. It gives him nachas ruach. Somehow it realizes some objective that he has. And that's why our avoda is valuable to him. It isn't just it's valuable to him because it's good for us. Somehow it accomplishes something that he wants to accomplish over the course of history. Whatever this means. But that's the difference between the 613 mitzvahs of the Jewish people and the Sheva mitzvahs of the Bnei Noach. The Sheva mitzvahs of the Bnei Noach are totally for the sake of man. They are in order that there should be an ordered, structured society, free of the worst evils and corruption. So we're given the 7 mitzvahs. Don't steal, and don't kill, and don't commit adultery or incest. Or these are laws which are necessary to preserve the stability of society, the integrity of society. Now, these mitzvahs are not tzarech gevaya. They don't satisfy God's desire. They don't help realize God's plan for the world. They're really just for us. And therefore, if God was to reward us for keeping the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, it would still be charity. It wouldn't be worth his while to pay us for that service. Somehow the 613 mitzvahs are different. Because they satisfy some tzarech gavaya, it justifies his paying us for doing them. Let me give you a mashal that will illustrate this. I used the mashal before. I think it's a valid mashal. Imagine a father-in-law has a son-in-law. And he's supporting the son-in-law. So he figures, why should I just send him a check once a month? Let me bring him into the family business. So he decides to bring the son-in-law into the family business. Now the son-in-law has no business experience, he has no job skills. So the father gives him a job, but the father doesn't want him to cause any trouble. So he puts him in a room and he has him filing, doing reports, etc. Busy work. It doesn't contribute anything to the company, nothing to the bottom line. They say, you're really a nobody when you leave your job and you don't create a vacancy. Exactly, that's the situation that this guy is in. If you leave the job, they wouldn't hire anybody to replace him. So he's doing his job, and he deludes himself into thinking that he is making a valid contribution, and this justifies his receiving his monthly paycheck. Then one day comes, and he discovers, much to his dismay, that he works so hard on these reports and all the filings and so on and so forth, and he submits them to his father-in-law, the boss, and his father-in-law just throws them out without even looking at them. They are worthless. They have no value to him. Retroactively, he realizes that he was still getting charity all along. It was only a pretense. He wasn't doing anything that the father-in-law really should pay for. The father-in-law was looking for an excuse. It shouldn't look like charity, so he said, here's a job. Keep busy, do this. Push papers, and I'll give you a check. But in reality, once the son-in-law sees through it, he realizes it was charity all along. So, if we're going to say that the reason the Rebbeinu Shalom gave mitzvahs is that we should earn our keep, it isn't enough just to say, here's some busy work to do, here's a job. Do your job and I'll pay you. If it's a job that, from God's perspective, does not need to be done, it's not going to solve the problem. But just because I'm busy, now it makes sense why God should pay me? What am I doing for him? What am I contributing? If somehow the mitzvahs satisfy some sorech gavaya, whatever that means, some divine need, so then to justify is if I'm giving something to God which is meaningful for God, it makes sense that God should in exchange pay me some type of reward. That's a radical idea. Because what does it mean that the self-sufficient, totally independent God has some need that is satisfied? Obviously, it's not a need. Most say want, but there is something that that he could not do himself. It has to be done through us, and this gives him such satisfaction that it's worthwhile for him to pay us, and consequently, we don't have to feel we are on welfare. We are not recipients of charity. We are giving God something which is meaningful to him, and accordingly, we can be proud of our effort, and this justifies whatever God bestows upon us. That is the general scheme. And that only began with the 630 mitzvahs. That only began with the giving of the Torah. The Sheva mitzvahs b'nayach don't satisfy this consideration in the same way. So it comes out that Shavuot really addresses a very serious problem. Now, the problem that Shavuot addresses, and the question that it answers, is how can we live in this world without a sense of shame, embarrassment, being the recipients of God's welfare? The answer is God gave us the Torah, gave us his mitzvahs, and accordingly, we are doing something for God which God considers worthwhile, and that justifies God's giving us life and sustenance and so on and so forth. Shavuot really is the solution to the problem. And in the mystical terminology, this embarrassment is called nama de kisufa, the bread of shame. Right? When you receive something that's undeserved, it's humiliation, it's embarrassing. And it's one of those things you can get used to very fast. But when you think about it deeply, it is an embarrassment. And Shavuot solves the problem. Now let's talk about this a little bit more deeply. There's a Gemara in Maseches Brachos that brings a verse that says like this. It speaks about Hay Avire Lev, the stout-hearted people, Harechaikim Mitzedakah, who are far from charity. And these were people that were very proud people, and they didn't want to take charity. They distanced themselves from charity. So who were these people that were Rechaikim Mitzedakah? They were far from charity. So the Gemara gives two pshatim, two interpretations. One is, it refers to Talmidei Chachamim, it refers to Torah scholars, it refers to tzaddikim. Because the entire world is nizayin bechesed, the entire world is sustained by God's kindness, v'heim ba'im v'neitlim b'zraya, and they come and they take their sustenance by right. Well, that is totally consistent with what we've said until now. In other words, if you don't keep the mitzvahs, you don't do the Torah, and God nevertheless gives you life and sustenance, that means you're taking charity. You're taking nama de kisuf, the bread of shame. If you want to be proud and distant from charity, you don't want to have that stigma of being on the dole, so you have to learn Torah, you have to do mitzvahs. And then you are rachaik mitzedakah. So the people that are rachaik mitzedakah, the people that are far from charity, these are the Torah scholars, the tzaddikim, the people that do the right thing. Then the Gemara brings another interpretation, that it refers to Reb Chanina ben Dosa. He is the paradigm of this person who is far from tzedakah. Because the Gemara tells us that a heavenly voice used to come out every day and say, Kol ha'olam kulai nizayin b'shvil Chanina b'ni. The entire world is sustained in the merit of my son Chanina, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, as God says. The Chanina b'ni, and Chanina, my son, Dailo b'kav charuvim, it suffices for him a small measure of carob, Me'erev Shabbos, l'Erev Shabbos, from Friday to Friday. That's all he eats. Carob, boxer, shoe leather. You know what boxer is. And that's all he ate. That's all he ate. So he was rachaik mitzedakah. He was distant from charity because he took so little from this world, even though he was deserving of more. The whole world was sustained in his merit. Yet, for himself, he took nothing. Or next to nothing. And in that sense, he is rachaik mitzedakah. So you can be distant from tzedakah in one of two ways. Either because you earn your keep, or if for some reason you don't feel you've earned your keep, you are rachaik mitzedakah by taking as little as you possibly can. Now, I think we all have this experience. up to a point, we are very, very happy to take from our parents. Our parents give us, and with an open hand and an open heart, and we reach a point at which we feel we don't want to take anymore. I'm waiting for my kids to reach that point. For some it has, for some it hasn't. But you get the idea. In other words, beyond the point, the children feel, listen, we don't want to be sponging off our parents forever. We don't want to feel we're taking tzedakah. So to be rachek mit tzedakah, you take less. You reduce what you take. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, it says, "Mein Torah and Kemach." If there's no Torah, there's no flour. Meaning that if there's no Torah, there's no mitzvahs, then you don't have the merit with which to be sustained. But the Mishnah interestingly also says, right before that in Ein Kemach Ein Torah. But if there's no flour, there's no Torah. So we have a dilemma here. In other words, we only become deserving of flour because we do Torah. But we're only able to do Torah because we have flour. Right? You can't learn Torah on an empty stomach. So how does it start? How do we get that first kemach, that first flour, that first measure of sustenance to give us the strength and the ability to do Torah, to thereby earn our sustenance? It seems it's paradoxical. The main kemach ain't Torah. If there's no flour, there's no Torah, and if there's no Torah, there's no flour. So how does it start? The answer is very simple. It's like a salesman. Imagine you have a company and you hire a salesman, and the arrangement is the salesman is paid by commission. So whatever he sells, he'll get a percent. But he needs some startup expenses. He needs an advance, right? He has to buy himself whatever he needs. A car, he needs appropriate clothing to wear, etc. Maybe he needs a laptop. So where are you going to get that money from? So you say, listen, I'll give you an advance up front against your commission. Well, ultimately, you'll have to make it up. I'll give it to you in advance. So therefore, there's an advance to get him started, but ultimately, he will earn his livelihood by making sales. It's the same thing. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us an advance. He says, listen, you have to learn Torah. Only by doing Torah, doing mitzvahs, learning Torah, will you earn your sustenance. But I understand, you have to get started. So first I'll give you an advance. This is an advance. It's an advance against your ultimate commission. It says this will get you started. Of course, the main kemach ain't Torah. There's no flour, there's no Torah. But now that you have enough flour to get yourself started, through that Torah you will earn your subsequent kemach. Where do we see this? It's an amazing thing. That, as we said, every year, the new grain is prohibited until we do something. Until we bring the carbon ha'omer, the shtei halechem, chadash, the new grain is prohibited. That means every year there is a new gift of kemach. Every year there is a gift of the new flour. The old flour was permitted last year. But this year there is a special permission given to partake of the new flour. That comes Pesach, Shavuot, with these korbanos. Is a gift of the new flour. And it becomes permitted at two different times. It becomes permitted on Pesach with the carbon ha'omer, and it becomes permitted on Shavuos with the shtei halechem. I would conjecture that the first permission, the permission that comes Pesach, this is the kemach, that's the advance. We're not going to have Torah till Shavuos. This is the advance we're given. We're given the advance Pesach. This is our first gift of the new flour. This is an advance. This is to get you started. To get you started until you come to Shavuos. Because if ain't kamach ain't Torah. First you have sustenance before you come to Torah. So this is the gift of sustenance to tide you over until Shavuos. Shavuos, we have a Kabbalah Torah, we accept Torah, and I think we've said over many times the beautiful thought of Rabbi Eliezer that if a person makes a commitment and lives up to the commitment, follows through, all the merit that will accrue as a consequence of those observances are credited to your account in advance. So for example, if a person makes a resolution, I'm going to learn Daf Yomi every day, and he keeps it, and he for 7.5 years learns the Daf Yomi, so the reward for all 2,711 pages is credited to your account in advance as soon as you make the commitment. So Shavuos is day of commitment, and therefore all the good deeds that follow from that commitment are credited to our account. So now we've earned our kemach. So we're given a gift of kemach again. That's with the shtei halechem, and that's in ein Torah, ein kemach. If there's no Torah, there's no flour. But if there is Torah, there is flour. So the kemach of the Korban HaOmer is the advance. But the kemach we receive on Shavuos, this is the kemach which we have earned. Let's understand this deeply. What's the difference between the advance and what you really earned? You see, the advance was given to you for a purpose, right? The balabas gives you the advance to be used to set yourself up in business. If you squander it, if you misappropriate it, you're in trouble. What you really earn is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You can give it away, use it for yourself, invest it, it's yours. It's free for you. That's one difference. Number two, the other difference would seem to be that to the extent that it's in advance that you haven't earned, it would be best if you could minimize it. Take as little as possible. Of course, something is necessary. You have to take something. It ain't kamach ain't Torah. But if you could minimize that which you take, you'll say, listen, I haven't earned it yet. So whatever I'm being given is charity. So if I can just take less, it would make sense to take less. Once I've earned it, there's no reason I should minimize it. I've earned it. It's mine. Why should I take less? But if you have a job and the salary is X thousand dollars, you go to the boss and say, listen, I don't need so much. Here. Keep half the salary. Crazy? Why'd you do that? You earned it. It's yours. You're entitled to it. Right? This isn't charity. You've earned it. That was the contract. That was the arrangement. You've earned it. You deserve it. Why should you have to get any of it back? But the advance, to the extent that you haven't earned it yet, if you can do with less, you should do with less. Now let's think about the idea of a carbon. What is the idea of a carbon? When God gives us something, how do we acknowledge that it came from Him? We give some of it back to Him. Right? That's the idea of a carbon. When God gives us so much, so we give something back. So we have the Korban HaOmer, which is, first of all, barley. And secondly, it's matzah, it's unleavened. It's not so gishmak. It isn't so tasty. So what does that mean? That means that the gift of kemach that God gives us is also not so gishmak. He gives us barley. He gives us unleavened barley. How do we know that's what He's giving us? Because that's what we give back to Him. We give Him a portion of unleavened barley back. So it must be that in some sense that is the gift that He's giving us. Come Shavuos, it's a new gift. Now it's leavened wheat. It's more geshmak. If that's what we're giving back to God, it must mean that's what God is giving us now. Meaning, because the gift of Chadash, of the new grain, that God gives on Pesach, is the advance. We haven't been given the Torah yet. This is only our advance. So really, we should minimize what we take. We shouldn't take the most pleasurable thing. We shouldn't maximize our enjoyment. We shouldn't give ourselves the luxury of wheat, which is leaven on top of everything else. It says if we can suffice with unleavened barley, better we should take only that. We should be rachak mitzedakah. We should distance ourselves from charity by taking as little as we can. Come Shavuos, we've earned it. So then we are entitled to leavened wheat. So therefore, when we give back to God, what do we give back? We give back from what He gave us. He gave us leavened wheat. We give Him back leavened wheat. The other difference is this, that even though with the Karban HaOmer, Chadash becomes permitted for human consumption, we can't bring it as a carbon. Why? Now we understand why. Because if it's given to us for a purpose, we're not meant to become philanthropists and make donations and contributions to the temple from that. This was given to us as an advance that we should be able to get ourselves started. It's not ours. What kind of carbon is that? What kind of offering to God is that? We're not giving Him something which is truly ours. Come Shavuos, when we receive the gift of Chadash Shavuos, it's truly ours. We've earned it. Because now we have the Torah. In the ain't Torah, ain't Kemach. If there's no Torah, there's no flour. But if there is Torah, there is flour. Now it truly is ours. If it's truly ours, we can use it for korbanos. We can use it for charitable purposes. We're entitled to use it. We can spend it and dispose of it as we want. So therefore, that's really the idea of the Torah telling us that the 7 weeks of Sfira really aren't to connect Yetzias Mitzrayim and the giving of the Torah explicitly. They're to connect these two sacrifices. But it teaches an important lesson. In other words, the freedom of Mitzrayim was not deserved. God liberated us. He gave us a gift of freedom. We didn't earn it. It was charity on God's part. When did we become deserving of God's gift of freedom? When we received the Torah. And therefore, the Karban Omer of Pesach symbolizes the gift we give back to God for having received an undeserved kindness. That's the Karban Omer. God gives us the gift of the new grain. We haven't earned it yet. This is merely our advance. So we are uncomfortable taking. We will take barley. We will take unleavened barley. Accordingly, that is what we give back to God. Since this is what we're taking from God, this is what we give back to God. That's the idea of a carbon, a flour.
Didn't you say that we don't give back from something so meager that we didn't earn?
No, see, to get this, right, we give this back. We're not entitled to use the rest for any other purpose. But God says, listen, you have to acknowledge it comes from me. So I gave you unleavened barley, you give me back unleavened barley. Right? But the rest you have to use for yourself. You can't use for the temple. You can't become a charitable donor with the advance. So Shavuos is different. Shavuos, we truly earn it. Therefore, in Shavuos, it becomes permitted not only for human consumption, but permitted to be used as something that can be brought in the temple. But this really is the idea of Shavuos. Shavuos gives us the ability to live in this world with a sense of pride and being deserving of God's blessing. It all comes in the merit of our observance of Torah. I'd like to point out another thing about these verses. Very, very interesting thing about these verses. The first day of Pesach, in this verse, is referred to as Shabbos. Usfartem lochem mimachras haShabbos. You should count from the day which follows Shabbos. Shabbos is the first day of Pesach, and you count from the next day, from the second day of Pesach. And this is very odd, that Yom Tov should be called Shabbos. It's not really Shabbos, it's Yom Tov. No, the laws are different. Right? Shabbos, all labors are prohibited. Yom Tov, certain things are permitted. You can cook on Yom Tov, you can carry on Yom Tov. But it's not as severe as Shabbos. And here the Torah refers to the first day of Pesach as Shabbos. Now this verse led the Tzdukim astray. The Tzdukim were a heretical set. They rejected the rabbinic tradition, and they said that no, here really means Shabbos, and you always start counting the Sefira on a Sunday. You always start on a Sunday. You start with Machmas or Shabbos, the day after Saturday. You always start counting on a Sunday. And accordingly, Shavuos always falls out on a Sunday. Because if you count 7 weeks, and the weeks all begin on a Sunday and end on a Shabbos, so therefore the 50th day will be, again, a Sunday. And the Gemara in Menachah says an astounding thing, that there was a Tzduki who said to Rabbi Yochanan, he says, you know why Shavuos always fall out on a Sunday? According to them, it always falls on a Sunday. You know why it falls out on a Sunday? Because Moshe Rabbeinu loved the Jews, and he wanted them to have a 2-day weekend. So therefore he arranged that Shavuos should always fall out on a Sunday. And apparently the politicians understood the same thing. That's why all our secular holidays either fall out on Mondays or on Thursdays. Though I don't know actually. Thanksgiving is on a Thursday. So what happens to Friday? Friday is also...
Throw it in.
Friday's off.
Friday's also
for
off.
good measure.
They throw it in. So it's like a 4-day weekend. Right?
Yeah.
In those days, 2 days was considered enough. Anyway. But that's what the Tzdukim said.
That's why they call it Thanksgiving.
Okay, it's 4-day weekend. That could be. Now, the question is this. The question is that why did the Torah use this very odd expression which results in such confusion? Like, why call it Shabbos? Call it Yom Tov, Machmas HaPesach. Some clearer expression. Like, why put it in such a way which results in such a confusion? Why refer to it as Shabbos? And there are other questions over here. In other words, why did we start counting from the second day of Pesach? Machmas HaShabbos. Now, if we want to connect the Yetzias Mitzrayim to the giving of the Torah, we should count from the first day. The first day was the day of the Yetzias Mitzrayim itself. Why do we count from the second day? Now, the Sefer HaChinuch gives an answer which is fairly unsatisfying. The Sefer HaChinuch says to this question because we don't want to take anything away from the celebration of the Exodus. We don't want on the first day of Pesach, which is the day of the Exodus itself, to do anything which implies that its significance only is to the extent it leads up to something else. So we don't begin counting towards Shavuos until the next day. But that day, the Yetzias Mitzrayim is central, and not only because it leads to the giving of the Torah, which again is a little strange. I mean, if the reality is that its significance is in that it leads to the giving of the Torah, why not call a spade a spade? To be honest, don't try to fool us on the first day of Pesach and say that the first day of Pesach is special in and of itself. The Bnei Yissaschar says an amazing interpretation. It says like this. It says, what really is the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov? We ask ourselves, what is the fundamental difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov? So the Gemara in Pesachim says a very interesting thing. That we know that in the Shemona Esrei that we say on a regular Shabbos, the conclusion of the blessing is Mekadesh HaShabbos. Blessed art thou, Mekadesh HaShabbos. God who sanctifies the Shabbos. Mekadesh HaShabbos. God who sanctifies the Shabbos. On Yom Tov, we say Mekadesh Yisrael Vazmanim. God sanctifies the Jewish people and the holidays. On Shabbos, we make no mention of the sanctification of the Jewish people. But in holidays, we say Mekadesh Yisrael. God sanctifies the Jewish people and the holidays. So how do you account for that difference? So we know that Shabbos is fixed. Shabbos is Shabbos. That means that from the 6 days of creation, there was a cycle of 6 days of work and 1 day of rest, and again. That means Shabbos is sanctified by God. It does not involve any human input. The Kedushas HaShabbos is, as the Gemara says, Kviya v'kaima. It is fixed. It is fixed in time by God. So we don't mention the Jewish people at all. Makadosh HaShabbos. God sanctifies the Shabbos. The holidays are different. How is the calendar fixed in the Torah system? Well, this is an interesting thing. We have a calendar. We have a calendar which is set up on the basis of rules. And applying those rules, we can come up with calendars for hundreds and even thousands of years into the future. You know, their computer programs can do it easily. You know, you want to know if I had a son who would become bar mitzvah in the year 2087, right? So what day of the week would it be? You know, type it in, you get your answer. But that's not the system that the Torah really envisioned. The system that the Torah envisioned, which is the system that will be reinstituted when Mashiach comes, is called being Makadesh al Pi Re'iyah. As Rosh Chodesh is fixed by the astronomical observation of the moon. Because when the new moon is sighted, witnesses come to Yerushalayim, they testify they saw the new moon, and on the basis of that testimony, the court declares today is Rosh Chodesh. And of course, Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, fixes all the subsequent dates of the month. So when Rosh Chodesh Nisan is established on a Wednesday, we know that the 15th of Nisan, which is Pesach, will also be on a Wednesday. Okay? And that's the system. And therefore it was very unpredictable, by the way. Very unpredictable. Because you wouldn't know, for example, when your son's bar mitzvah parsha would be. Right? Let's say your son was born on Rosh Chodesh Av. For argument's sake, Rosh Chodesh Av. And the year of his bar mitzvah, it's not determined whether Rosh Chodesh Av is going to be on a Shabbos or will be on a Sunday. Well, if Rosh Chodesh Av is on a Shabbos, then the Parsha will be Matos Maseh. If Rosh Chodesh Av is on a Sunday, then the following Shabbos will be Parshas Dvarim. So imagine if you're a bar mitzvah boy and you're wondering what parsha to prepare. And the father says, well, we got to wait and see. We won't know till about a week before. Or maybe that day itself, when Rosh Chodesh is. So it's a little inconvenient. But the point is that Rosh Chodesh is fixed by the Beis Din HaGadol, which is the central authority for the Jewish people. So it is Makadesh Yisrael Vazmanim. God sanctifies the Jewish people, and the Jewish people in turn, through their leadership, sanctifies the Rosh Chodesh. That's what a Yontif is. The Zmanim are sanctified by the Jewish people. By the way, it's a very interesting thing that you may never have thought about this, that the first mitzvah that was given to Moshe Rabbeinu in Egypt was the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. That the Jewish court sanctifies the new moon and fixes Rosh Chodesh. And you might wonder, of all the mitzvahs that have to be given to Moshe Rabbeinu, couldn't that have waited until the Jews got out of Egypt and stood at Har Sinai? They could have been given that mitzvah then. Why did they have to be given that mitzvah in Mitzrayim? There's a very simple answer to that. You see, there was a fixed date for the Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Yetzias Mitzrayim was meant to take place on the 15th day of Nisan. But there was no Jewish calendar until the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. So how would there be a 15th of Nisan? There's no 15th of Nisan. Where was there a 15th of Nisan? I don't know what kind of calendar the Egyptians were using, but certainly didn't have the 15th of Nisan. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to give Moshe Rabbeinu the system of Kiddush HaChodesh, how to sanctify the new moon, how to fix the Jewish calendar, and then God's promise could be triggered to provide the redemption on the 15th of Nisan. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a date. It's like the unfortunate people whose birthday is on February 29th. Only have a birthday every 4 years. There's no day to celebrate. There would have been no 15th of Nisan. The God says, I promised I would redeem the Jews in the 15th of Nisan, but there is no 15th. There's no court, there's no authority, there's no calendar, so there's no 15th of Nisan. So therefore the promise can't be kept. So therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Moshe Rabbeinu the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, that you have the power to fix the calendar, and now they fixed the calendar on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. 2 weeks later, you have the 15th of Nisan. That is the day for God's fulfillment of the promise. But that's the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shabbos is fixed. Yom Tov is sanctified by the Jewish people. By analogy, when we receive something through our own effort, that's analogous to Yom Tov. When we receive something as a gift, that's analogous to Shabbos. Shabbos is fixed by God. Yom Tov is something that we create by the sanctification of the new moon. So by analogy, something which is, let me illustrate it. There's a Zohar. The Zohar says there are certain Talmidei Chachamim, certain Torah scholars are compared to Shabbos, and there are certain Torah scholars that are compared to Yom Tov. So you wonder, why would that be? Why are there certain Torah scholars that are compared to Shabbos and certain others compared to Yom Tov? What would the comparison be? The answer is there are certain Torah scholars who accomplish whatever they accomplish through their own effort, their own hard work. That's compared to Yom Tov. And there are certain Torah scholars that what they receive is a gift from heaven. That's compared to Shabbos. Why should there be such Torah scholars who what they receive is a gift from heaven? The answer is it's because the generation needs it. Or sometimes you have people that there's something missing in that generation. They need a certain enlightenment. So God gives it as a gift to the person who will spread this enlightenment. It's not something he achieved through his own effort. Therefore, it's compared to Shabbos. It's like a gift from heaven. Then you have the Torah scholar who works hard. And he achieves what he achieves. That's compared to Yom Tov. The first day of Pesach, says the B'nai Yissaschar, it's true, it's a Yom Tov, but it has an aspect of Shabbos. Because the enlightenment that we received on the first day of Pesach, the gift of freedom, in the Haggadah we read, there was Gilu Shechina, there was revelation of the divine presence. It was a gift. It was a gift. And therefore the first day of Pesach, in a sense, is called Shabbos. That's why it's referred to as Shabbos over here. The second day of Pesach is Machros of Shabbos, the day which follows Shabbos. And the question you have to ask is, why did God give us this tremendous gift? This tremendous gift of enlightenment on that day, gratis, undeserved, unearned. The answer is like this. Because sometimes, if you want a person to work towards a goal, you have to give them a taste of what awaits them if they only would invest hard work and effort. Let's say, for example, I'm going to give you baking lessons. I'll teach you how to bake. And you're going to ask me, why should I learn how to bake? Why should I spend the time, the effort, energy, expense? Why bother? So I say, listen, eat this piece of cake, and you'll see that if you take baking lessons, you'll be able to make such a cake yourself. Amen. Right? So you eat that cake and you taste it and say, oh, now that I taste the end result, now I realize it's worthwhile for me to exert all this effort to learn how to bake. That's just a muscle, but everything in life is like that. So if I want to inspire you to learn a musical instrument, right? So you say, why should I want to learn a musical instrument? So I might expose you to some very, very fine music, very enjoyable music, and say, listen, if you exert the effort, now you'll be able to make that music on your own. Right now you only can listen. But if you work hard, take lessons and practice, you'll be able to create such music. So I want to give you a taste of what's in store in order to inspire you to work hard to achieve your ultimate goal. So that's what's going on over here. On the first day of Pesach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed tremendous, tremendous light. And even today, so many years removed from the Exodus from Egypt, when we sit at the Seder, we feel something special. There's an inspiration, there's an enlightenment that comes the first night of Pesach, first day of Pesach. But it's a tease, it's a taste. Hashem says, I'm just giving you that as Shabbos, as a gift, to let you know what the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is. If you're willing to work hard, you can then achieve this through your own effort. When does the work begin? The work begins the next day. That's the Sfira Saimer. That's the preparation. What we're trying to do over the days of Sfira is to reclaim the enlightenment of the first day of Pesach. But this time not as a free gift, as a achievement that can embark to our own effort, to our own hard work. So we have the 7 weeks of Sfira, and we prepare, and then we come to Shavuot. It's truly ours. We've earned it, we've created it. And that's the idea, that we count from Machros HaShabbos. The first day of Pesach is like Shabbos. It's unearned. Now we work hard, and we toil, and we prepare, and on Shavuot it becomes ours. And going back to what we discussed in the first half, that's exactly what Shavuot is. Shavuot is, it's not just the opportunity to earn our material bounty. That's certainly part of it. Because by giving us a Torah and giving us mitzvahs, we have the opportunity to earn our bread, to earn our housing, to earn our clothing. And that's true. Right? Main Torah and Kelach. If there's no Torah, then you're not deserving of sustenance. If there is Torah, you are deserving of sustenance. But it's more than that. What we want to achieve Shavuos is not just the ability to be deserving of our material sustenance. We want to be deserving of our ability to achieve spiritual enlightenment. And that's what we really want to prepare for. I think this is something that we all have to strive for as we grow as Jews. And this is something which I want you to think about, because it's an important thing. You know, it's a nice thing to come to a class. You come to a class and you hear someone say some interesting things, and you maybe take notes. That's very, very nice. But there's no comparison between passively listening to a teacher and tackling something yourself. Because you open a Chumash, you open a Gemara, and you pour over it, and you work hard. And again, there's no comparison between reading the original and reading it in translation. When you read something in translation, then by definition, every translation is an interpretation. Because you're reading the text with the spin that the translator put on it. There's a certain subjectivity which the translator brings to the text. But if you start with the original text, if you've developed your Hebrew skills to the point that you can deal with the original text, now you bring your own mind to it, your own understanding. And there's so much more you get out of it. And that's what we really should want to achieve. We should want to invest the effort and the time to, instead of remaining passive consumers of enlightenment, to become active producers of enlightenment through our own effort, through our own struggle, through our own toil. And then it's totally different. It becomes something which is truly ours. It's not something which is just a taste. It's not something which is just fleeting. It's something which is a kinyan. It's a possession. And I think that when it comes to Shavuos, and we're thinking about a new year of Torah study, which essentially is, in a sense, Shavuos is like Rosh Hashanah for Torah. So I think we have to ask ourselves the question that what are we going to do in this coming year to become stronger in this area, more self-sufficient, more independent. And that independence gives me the ability to have opinions of my own. You know, you read the papers, or you look on the internet, and you see that there are great controversies that the Jewish world is embroiled in right now. And this person says this person says this, and you wonder, it seems to me like this, and maybe like that. Everything sounds equally sensible or equally nonsensible, But am I entitled to have an opinion of my own? Sure. Right? If you toil and you labor and study, then you're entitled to have an opinion of your own. Right? But if you're only a passive consumer, right, then you're always at the mercy of the person who's feeding you. So if you chance upon a person who has this opinion, okay, that's what I hear. I chance upon a person who has that opinion, that's what I hear. If you chance upon various people who have various opinions, then all there is confusion. Because what we want to do is we want to make ourselves self-sufficient in our Torah study. That this way we can grapple with the text and we can struggle with the text. Of course, there are levels. For some people, maybe a translation will always be necessary. Even though it's only second best. But there's a lot a person can achieve even by studying works in translation. A person who can develop the language skills to be able to learn independently, that's even better. But the main thing is that we all have to, I think, resolve that we're going to work a little bit harder. We're going to work a little bit harder, not simply just to listen and to hear and enjoy, but really to work hard, because then the Torah we learn will become a possession. It'll become something which is truly mine, and it'll be of greater value, because it's really your Torah, not just someone else's Torah that you happen to have overheard. And that's what the Torah tells us about Shavuos, about Sfiras Omer. That enlightenment which is given to us for free, that's Shabbos. We want to work our way from Shabbos to Yom Tov, from the first day of Pesach, which is Shabbos, to Shavuos, which is really the quintessential Yom Tov. It's the day that whatever we achieve because of our hard work. And just to point out a very interesting thing, that the very name of the holiday, Shavuos, is a reference to the 7 weeks of Sfira that precede. It's called the holiday of weeks, Shavuos, because it follows 7 weeks of preparation. And the Kedushas lady already asks the question that it seems to be a very odd name. They were like calling Pesach cleaning, because Pesach follows weeks of cleaning. So we call it the holiday of cleaning. They don't call it the holiday of cleaning. Cleaning is a preparation for the holiday. Right? The holiday has its own significance. So Shavuos should have some significance. Right? Whatever it is. Call it Torah Day. Right? It takes 7 weeks of preparation. Don't call it the holiday of weeks. The answer is because that is exactly what Shavuos is. Shavuos is the holiday where we enjoy that which we achieved through our own effort over the 7 weeks of Sfira. And, Shavuot is just in a day. So we're not going to relive the 7 weeks. But I think that we should be thinking in these terms. That what we should want to accomplish is that from now on, to a greater extent than it's been in the past, that our Torah study should engage us. It should demand of us effort and hard work. And then the Torah that we study will not simply be something which is pleasant, but it'll be something which is truly ours. Everyone should have a very, very happy, very meaningful holiday. And Be'ezus Hashem, we will meet without interruption next Monday. So have a good Yom Tov.